Elena, we need to talk about something, my sister Gabriella said, her voice dripping with that practiced sweetness she always used when she was about to ask for something outrageous. I looked up from my laptop where I had been reviewing quarterly reports for Velwyn Labs, the pharmaceutical company where I worked as a senior research coordinator in Louisville, Kentucky. Gabriella stood in my living room doorway, her perfectly manicured hands clasped together, her expression a mixture of feigned concern and barely concealed smugness. "What is it?" I asked, already bracing myself for whatever ridiculous wedding demand was coming next. She settled onto my couch, smoothing her designer dress with theatrical precision. "So, Tyler and I have been talking with the wedding photographer, and we've decided that we want the aesthetic to be very specific. You know, cohesive and elegant." I waited, my stomach already tightening with familiar dread. "The thing is, we've chosen a very particular color palette, an overall look for the photos, and we think it would be best if you weren't actually in any of the wedding pictures," she continued, her eyes avoiding mine. "It's nothing personal. We just want everything to look perfect, and you understand how these things work. We need everyone to fit the vision." The words hung in the air between us like poison. I stared at my sister, this woman I had grown up with, shared a childhood with, and felt something inside me go very still and very cold. "You don't want me in any photos at your wedding," I repeated slowly, making sure I had heard correctly. "It's just for the aesthetic," Gabriella said quickly, as though repeating that phrase made her request reasonable. "You'll still be there. You'll still be part of the day. You'll just stay out of the formal pictures. Tyler's family is very particular about these things, and we've already paid so much for the photographer. We need everything to be perfect." I looked at my sister, really looked at her. She was beautiful in that carefully constructed way that required hours of maintenance and mountains of expensive products. Her hair was professionally styled, her makeup flawless, her clothes impeccably chosen. She had always been the pretty one, the social one, the one our parents displayed with pride at every family gathering. And I had always been the smart one, the bookish one, the one who was useful for helping with homework or explaining complicated things, but never quite pretty enough to be shown off. "I see," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the anger building in my chest. Gabriella brightened, apparently taking my calm response as agreement. "I knew you'd understand. You're always so reasonable about these things. And honestly, you'll probably be more comfortable not having to worry about being in pictures all day. You can just relax and enjoy the party." She stood up, already moving toward the door as though the conversation was finished. "Oh, and Mom wanted me to remind you that we're counting on you for that speech at the reception. She says you're so good with words, and we really want something heartfelt and meaningful. You know, something that will make people cry." I watched her leave, heard her car start in the driveway, and sat in the silence of my living room for a long moment. Then I picked up my phone and opened my banking app, looking at the balance I had been carefully building for the past 3 years. It was substantial, the result of long hours and careful saving. I had been planning to use some of it for a down payment on a house, but as I sat there, my sister's words echoing in my mind, a different plan began to form. If my family wanted me out of their pictures, wanted me invisible at this wedding that I had been expected to contribute to emotionally and financially, then I would give them exactly what they wanted. I would disappear, not just from the photos, from the entire event. I opened my laptop again, but this time I wasn't looking at work reports. I was searching for flights, for luxury resorts, for the most beautiful place I could find that would be as far away from Louisville as possible when Gabriella's wedding took place in 3 weeks. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Gabriella told me about the photo situation. I'm so glad you're being mature about this. It really is for the best. Can't wait to hear your speech." I stared at the message, my jaw clenching. Of course my mother knew. Of course she approved. Why was I even surprised? I typed back a simple response. "Looking forward to the wedding. And I was. I was looking forward to not being there at all. As I scrolled through resort options, memories flooded back with painful clarity. This wasn't the first time my family had made me feel invisible. It wasn't even the first time they had literally tried to remove me from photographs. I remembered my high school graduation. I had been valedictorian, had given a speech to the entire auditorium, had worn my honor cords with pride. But when we gathered for family photos afterward, my mother had kept rearranging us, putting Gabriella in the center, asking me to step back, to move to the side, to turn slightly so I wasn't blocking anyone. "Gabriella looks so pretty today," my mother had said, adjusting my sister's hair for the camera. "We want to make sure we get her good side." I had been the one graduating. I had been the one with the academic achievements. But Gabriella had been the one my mother wanted to showcase. Then there was my college graduation 4 years later. I had earned my degree in biochemistry with honors, had already secured my position at Velwyn Labs. My parents had come to the ceremony, but they had left early because Gabriella had a hair appointment she couldn't miss. "We got some pictures," my father had said, as though that made it acceptable. "And we'll celebrate with you later." Later never came. Instead, 2 weeks after my graduation, they threw Gabriella an elaborate party for getting cast in a local commercial. The celebration was huge, with catered food and champagne and dozens of guests. My graduation had warranted a quick dinner at a chain restaurant. I scrolled further back in my memory to childhood birthday parties. Mine had always been small, simple affairs. Gabriella's had been productions, with themes and entertainers and guest lists that rivaled wedding receptions. "Gabriella is just more social," my mother had explained when I was 12, and had asked why my sister got a pool party with 50 guests while I got cake with 3 friends in our backyard. "You're more of an introvert. You don't need all that attention." But I had wanted it. I had wanted my parents to think I was worth celebrating too. The pattern continued through every major life event. When I got my promotion to senior coordinator at 25, my parents had congratulated me with a phone call that lasted less than 5 minutes. When Gabriella got engaged 6 months ago, they had thrown her an engagement party that cost more than my entire year's rent. I had contributed to that party. I had helped plan it, had paid for the flowers, had smiled through the entire event, while relatives I barely knew told me how lucky I was to have such a beautiful, successful sister. Successful. Gabriella was a part-time social media influencer who made most of her income from our parents' generous monthly allowance. I had a career, a salary, a 401k, but Gabriella was the successful one because she was pretty and charming and knew how to work a camera. I remembered last Christmas, when my aunt had been taking family photos by the tree. I had been sitting on the couch, wearing a sweater I actually thought looked nice, feeling for once like maybe I fit in with my family's aesthetic standards. Then my mother had walked over and quietly asked me to move to the back row. "Gabriella's dress is so photogenic," she had whispered. "We want to make sure it's fully visible in the pictures." I had moved without argument, as I always did. I had smiled for the camera, even though I knew those photos would probably be cropped before they were shared on social media. I had seen my mother do it before, carefully editing images to center Gabriella and minimize my presence. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Gabriella. "Also, Mom suggested you might want to wear something simple to the wedding, like a basic dress in navy or gray. Nothing too attention-grabbing. We want to make sure the bridal party stands out." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. They wanted me invisible in every way. Not in photos, not in colorful clothing, not in any capacity that might draw attention away from Gabriella's perfect day. Another text came through. "And Tyler's mom asked if you could help with setup the morning of the wedding. She knows you're good at organizing things. Probably around 6 a.m.? So, I was good enough to do manual labor at dawn, good enough to write a heartfelt speech, good enough to contribute money and time and effort. just not good enough to actually be visible in any of the memories they were creating. I thought about the speech they wanted me to give. They expected me to stand up in front of all those guests and talk about how wonderful Gabriella was, how perfect her relationship with Tyler was, how happy I was for them. They expected me to celebrate being erased. I looked back at my laptop screen, at the beautiful Italian resort I had been researching. The Amalfi Coast, with its dramatic cliffs and azure waters. A boutique hotel perched on the hillside, with private balconies overlooking the Mediterranean. It was expensive, extravagant, and absolutely perfect. I clicked the booking button. The week before the wedding, my phone became a constant stream of demands disguised as requests. "Elena, can you pick up the flowers from the wholesaler? The florist is charging too much for delivery." That was my mother. "Elena, the caterer needs someone to do a final head count. Can you call all the guests?" That was Gabriella. "Elena, we need someone to pick up Tyler's parents from the airport. You don't have anything important going on, right?" That was my father, who had never once asked what I might have going on. I responded to each message with polite agreement, even as I finalized my travel plans. My flight would leave at 9 a.m. on the wedding day. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 p.m. By the time they realized I was gone, I would be somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean. 3 days before the wedding, my mother called me. I almost didn't answer, but I knew that would raise suspicion. "Elena, sweetie, I wanted to talk to you about your role at the wedding," she said, her voice saccharine. "My role?" I asked, already knowing this wouldn't be good. "Well, since you won't be in the photos, we thought it would be nice if you had a special job, something important." I waited, my grip tightening on the phone. "Your main responsibility will be to give that speech we talked about. Something really beautiful and emotional, you know. Make everyone cry. Talk about how Gabriella has always been such a wonderful sister, how she's always been there for you." The irony was so thick I almost choked on it. "And after the speech, we think it would be best if you just kind of stayed in the background. Let Gabriella have her moment. Don't draw attention to yourself. You understand, don't you? It's her special day." "I understand perfectly," I said. And I did. I understood that after 27 years, nothing had changed and nothing ever would. "I knew you would," my mother said, relief evident in her voice. "You've always been so understanding about these things, not like some girls who would make a fuss. You're the mature one." Mature. That was the word they always used when they wanted me to accept being treated as less than. Be mature. Be understanding. Don't make a scene. Don't have feelings about being excluded from your own family. After I hung up, I sat on my couch and let myself feel the full weight of the anger I had been suppressing for years. I felt it burn through me, hot and clarifying. I wasn't being sensitive. I wasn't overreacting. I was being systematically diminished by the people who were supposed to love me. That evening, I went to Gabriella's apartment to drop off some wedding favors I had been guilted into assembling. She was there with 3 of her bridesmaids, all of them looking at photos on a tablet. "Oh, Elena's here," one of them said, barely glancing up. I set down the box of favors and was about to leave when I heard Gabriella laugh. "I told the photographer to keep my sister as far away from the lens as possible. I mean, I love her, but she's just so awkward in photos. Always has been. It would totally ruin the aesthetic we're going for." The bridesmaids giggled and one of them said, "Smart thinking. You can't let anyone mess up your pictures. These are forever." "Exactly," Gabriella agreed. "And honestly, she's better at behind-the-scenes stuff anyway. She's not really a spotlight person." I stood frozen in the doorway, listening to my sister casually discuss erasing me from her wedding as though I was a stain to be removed. As though my presence was something to be managed and contained. "She's giving a speech though, right?" another bridesmaid asked. "Oh yeah, Mom insisted on that. Elena's good at that stuff. She'll probably make everyone cry." Gabriella paused. then laughed again. And then she'll fade into the background like she always does. I left without saying goodbye. None of them noticed. That night, I confirmed my resort booking, added spa treatments, upgraded to the premium suite. I arranged for a car service from the Naples airport. I bought a new wardrobe, beautiful dresses in vibrant colors that I would wear for no one but myself. And I drafted an email to be sent automatically on the morning of the wedding. Dear family, I won't be attending the wedding. I've decided to spend the day somewhere I'm actually wanted. Enjoy your perfect photos. Love, Elena. Short, simple, final. I scheduled it to send at 10 a.m., exactly 1 hour after my flight was scheduled to take off. By the time they read it, by the time they tried to call or text or demand I come back, I would be beyond their reach. The morning of the wedding, I woke at 5 a.m. I had barely slept, anxiety and anticipation churning in my stomach. But as I showered and dressed, as I double-checked my passport and travel documents, I felt something else too. Freedom. I was about to do something I had never done before. I was about to put myself first. I was about to choose my own dignity over their convenience. My phone was already buzzing with messages from my mother, asking me to come early to help with setup. I turned off notifications and slipped the phone into my purse. The car service arrived at 6 a.m. As we drove through the quiet Louisville streets toward the airport, I watched the city pass by my window. Somewhere across town, my family was probably starting to panic about last-minute wedding details. Somewhere, my mother was arranging flowers, and my sister was getting her hair done, and I was leaving all of it behind. At the airport, I checked my bags and went through security. I bought coffee and sat at the gate, watching other travelers. A family with young children, a couple holding hands, a businessman typing on his laptop, all of them going somewhere, all of them with their own stories and destinations. I was just another traveler now, not the invisible daughter, not the erased sister, just Elena, 27 years old, flying to Italy for a week of luxury and solitude. My phone buzzed one more time before I switched it to airplane mode. It was Gabriella. Where are you? Mom says you're not answering. We need you here now. I turned off the phone without responding. When they called my boarding group, I walked to the gate with my head high. I found my seat, a window seat I had specifically requested. I buckled in and watched as the plane filled with other passengers. As we taxied toward the runway, I thought about what was happening back in Louisville. The email would send in a few hours. They would read it and realize I was gone. They would panic, not because they would miss me, but because they needed me, my speech, my help, my labor. But they wouldn't have any of it. The plane lifted off, and I watched Louisville disappear below me. I was flying toward the Atlantic, toward Italy, toward a week of being visible only to myself. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, I was exactly where I wanted to be. The flight was long, but I didn't mind. I had brought a book I had been wanting to read for months, one of those novels that sits on your nightstand accumulating guilt because you never have time for it. Now I had nothing but time. As we flew over the Atlantic, I thought about all the conversations I could have had with my family before it came to this. All the times I could have spoken up, demanded respect, refused to accept their casual cruelty. I had tried once, actually. It was 6 months ago, right after Gabriella got engaged. I had gone to my parents' house for Sunday dinner, and my mother was showing me the engagement photos. They were beautiful, professional shots of Gabriella and Tyler looking radiant and in love. "These are amazing," I had said, genuinely happy for my sister despite everything. Then my mother showed me the family photo they had taken that day. I was in it, standing at the edge of the frame. My mother swiped to the next photo, and I was cropped out completely. "This is the one we're using for the Christmas card," she said. "Doesn't it look nice?" "I was in that photo," I said quietly. My mother had looked at me with surprise, as though I had said something strange. Well, yes, but this composition is better, more balanced. More balanced without me in it. Elena, don't be sensitive. You know what I mean. The photo just looks more professional this way. I had tried to explain how it felt, tried to tell her that being constantly edited out of family memories hurt, that it made me feel like I didn't belong in my own family. You're being dramatic, she had said, her tone hardening. We include you in plenty of photos. You're just upset because Gabriella is getting attention right now. It's her time to shine. You need to be happy for your sister instead of making everything about you. Making everything about me. That's what she said when I asked for basic recognition. When I asked to exist visibly in my own family. I had left that dinner early, and neither of my parents had called to check on me afterward. Now, thousands of feet above the ocean, I understood that there was no conversation that would have changed anything. They didn't see their behavior as wrong. They saw me as the problem, the sensitive one, the one who couldn't just be happy with whatever scraps of attention they threw my way. The woman next to me noticed I was crying silently. She offered me a tissue without asking questions, and I was grateful for that kindness from a stranger. When I landed in Naples, the Italian sunshine felt like absolution. I collected my bags and found the car service I had arranged. The driver was a cheerful man named Marco who spoke enthusiastic English and pointed out landmarks as we drove along the spectacular coastal roads. "First time to Amalfi?" he asked. "First time to Italy," I admitted. "Ah, you will love it. Very beautiful, very romantic." He grinned at me in the rearview mirror. "You meet someone special here, maybe?" "I'm meeting myself," I said, and he laughed like I had made a joke. But I was serious. I was meeting the version of myself that existed outside my family's narrative. The version that wasn't too awkward for photos, too invisible to matter, too understanding to complain. The resort was everything the photos had promised, and more. Perched on a cliff overlooking the Mediterranean, it was a paradise of white stone and blue tiles, and flowers cascading from every terrace. My room had a balcony that jutted out over the water, offering a view so stunning it didn't seem real. I stood on that balcony and checked my phone for the first time since boarding the plane in Louisville. It was 11 a.m. in Italy, which meant 5 a.m. in Kentucky. My email had sent an hour ago. I had 63 missed calls, 47 text messages, numerous voicemails. I scrolled through them, watching the progression from confusion to anger to panic. My mother, 10:15 a.m. "Elena, what is this email? Call me immediately." Gabriella, 10:23 a.m. "Are you serious right now? This is my wedding day." My father, 10:31 a.m. "This is incredibly selfish. Call your mother." Then the messages got more frantic. My mother, 10:47 a.m. "Where are you? We need you here. How could you do this?" Gabriella, 10:52 a.m. "You're ruining everything. Call me now." More from my mother. "The wedding is in 6 hours. You need to get here and give your speech. People are asking where you are." From Gabriella. "I can't believe you're doing this to me. On my wedding day. You're so selfish." From my father. "Your mother is hysterical. Fix this." I sat on the balcony with a glass of Prosecco provided by the resort and read through every message. Each one confirmed what I already knew. They weren't worried about me. They weren't concerned about why I had left or how I was feeling. They were angry because I had disrupted their plans. I didn't respond to any of the messages. Instead, I put my phone on silent and changed into a sundress I had bought specifically for this trip. It was bright yellow, cheerful, and bold, and everything my family would have told me not to wear. I went down to the resort's restaurant and ordered lunch. Fresh seafood, pasta with lemon and herbs, wine that tasted like sunshine. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, watching the water sparkle below the terrace. Other guests chatted around me. A couple celebrating their anniversary. A family with teenagers who kept taking photos. A group of friends laughing over a shared bottle of wine. Normal people having normal vacations, none of them worrying about whether they were too awkward for photographs. After lunch, I walked down to the private beach. The resort had provided loungers and umbrellas, and a cheerful attendant brought me cold water and magazines. I lay in the sun and read and swam in the crystal clear water, and didn't think about what was happening in Louisville. Except I did think about it. Of course I did. I imagined my mother pacing, calling everyone she knew, trying to find me. I imagined Gabriella in her bridal suite, probably crying, definitely furious. I imagined my father making stern phone calls, demanding I fix the situation I had created. I imagined the guests arriving, getting seated, wondering where the sister of the bride was. I imagined the whispers, the questions, the growing realization that something was wrong. And I imagined the moment when they would have to announce that there would be no speech from the sister. That part of the program would be skipped, that Elena, who was supposed to say something heartfelt and beautiful, who was supposed to make everyone cry with her words about how wonderful Gabriella was, had decided not to come at all. The thought should have made me feel guilty. Instead, it made me feel powerful. Around 3 p.m. Italian time, which was 9 a.m. in Louisville, and an hour before the ceremony was supposed to start, my phone started ringing continuously. I watched it light up with call after call, but I didn't answer. I had nothing to say to them yet. Finally, I turned the phone face down and ordered a massage at the resort spa. The therapist worked out knots in my shoulders I hadn't even known were there, tension I had been carrying for years. As I lay on the massage table, listening to soft music and the distant sound of waves, I cried again. But this time they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of release. After the massage, I went back to my room and finally listened to one voicemail. Just one, from my mother, left at 11:30 a.m. her time. Elena, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is unacceptable. Your sister is having a breakdown. She needed you there. She needed your speech. How could you abandon her like this? What are people going to think? We look like fools, telling everyone you're sick when we don't even know where you are. You need to fix this. Call me back immediately. I deleted the voicemail. Then I opened my suitcase and pulled out the dress I had bought for dinner tonight. It was emerald green silk, elegant and expensive. I did my hair and makeup with care, taking my time, enjoying the ritual of it. At 7 p.m., I went down to the resort's rooftop restaurant. I had made a reservation for one, and the host seated me at a table with a perfect view of the sunset over the Mediterranean. I ordered champagne. Real champagne, not Prosecco, the expensive kind that came with strawberries and attentive service. I ordered the chef's tasting menu, 7 courses of culinary artistry, and as the sun set in a blaze of orange and pink, as the sky turned purple and the first stars appeared, I raised my glass in a silent toast to being visible, to choosing myself, to disappearing from their perfect photos and finding myself in the process. My phone buzzed again. I glanced at it and saw a text from an unknown number. Probably one of Gabriella's bridesmaids, or a relative who had been recruited to track me down. The text read, "Wherever you are, I hope you know you've destroyed your relationship with this family. Mom is devastated. Gabriella's wedding is ruined. Everyone is talking about what you did. You'll never be forgiven for this." I deleted it without responding. Another text came through, this time from Gabriella herself. It was a long paragraph, a wall of angry text. "I can't believe you did this to me. On my wedding day, the most important day of my life. How dare you make this about you? Everyone is asking where you are. I had to tell them you were sick. Do you know how embarrassing this is? Do you even care? You've always been jealous of me. Always. And now you've proven it. You couldn't stand that I was getting attention. So you had to ruin everything. I hope you're happy. You've shown everyone what you really are. Selfish, cruel, not a real sister at all." I read it twice, looking for any hint of self-awareness, any recognition of the irony in her words. She was calling me selfish for leaving a wedding where I had been explicitly told I was too awkward to be photographed. She was calling me cruel for refusing to give a speech celebrating her after she had spent weeks treating me as an inconvenience. The lack of awareness would have been funny if it wasn't so sad. I put my phone away and focused on my dinner. Each course was a masterpiece, and I complimented the chef when he came out to greet guests. He was delighted that I was enjoying the food and sent out an extra dessert with his compliments. As I ate tiramisu and watched the lights of fishing boats on the dark water, I thought about what I had lost and what I had gained. I had lost a family that had never really valued me. I had gained something more precious: self-respect. The next morning, I woke to sunshine streaming through my balcony doors and the sound of seabirds calling. For a moment, I forgot where I was, forgot what I had done. Then I remembered, and instead of regret, I felt peace. I ordered breakfast on the balcony: fresh fruit, pastries still warm from the oven, coffee so perfect it made me want to cry. I ate slowly, watching sailboats drift across the impossibly blue water. My phone showed more missed calls, more messages. I scrolled through them with detached curiosity, as though reading about someone else's drama. My father had left a voicemail. His voice was cold, controlled anger. "Your mother and I are extremely disappointed in you. This behavior is unacceptable. You've embarrassed the entire family. When you're ready to apologize, you can call us. Until then, don't bother coming around." The message that hurt most came from my aunt, my mother's sister, who had always been kind to me. "Elena, honey, I don't know what happened, but your mom is really upset. Whatever this is about, don't you think it's gone far enough? Family is family. We're supposed to be there for each other." I almost called her back, almost tried to explain, but I knew it wouldn't matter. She hadn't been there for all the years of being pushed aside, cropped out, told to be quieter, smaller, less visible. She hadn't heard my sister laugh about keeping me away from the camera lens. She only saw that I had missed the wedding, and in her mind, that was the only transgression that mattered. I spent the day exploring the town. I walked narrow streets lined with lemon trees, visited a medieval cathedral, bought postcards I would never send. I had lunch at a tiny trattoria where the owner's grandmother made pasta by hand in the front window. I practiced my limited Italian and made the family laugh with my pronunciation. In the afternoon, I hiked up to a viewpoint overlooking the coastline. It was steep and challenging, and I arrived at the top sweaty and breathless. But the view was worth it. I could see for miles, the dramatic cliffs plunging into the sea, the towns clinging to the hillsides, the endless blue water stretching to the horizon. I took photos, lots of them. Me with the coastline behind me, me smiling at the camera, me with wind-blown hair and flushed cheeks and pure, uncomplicated joy on my face. Photos no one had told me I couldn't be in. That evening, I finally decided to respond to my family. Not with explanations or apologies, but with proof of where I was and what I had chosen instead of their wedding. I selected the best photo from the viewpoint, one where I looked happy and free and entirely unrepentant. I posted it on social media with a simple caption: "Sometimes the most important place to be is anywhere but where you're not wanted. Amalfi Coast, Janner, Italy. Living my best life." I tagged my location. I didn't tag any family members. Then I turned off my phone completely and went to dinner. The next morning, when I finally turned my phone back on, the response was nuclear. My mother had called 17 times. Gabriella had sent a series of increasingly unhinged messages. My father had sent one text, immature and embarrassing. But there were other messages too. From friends I hadn't heard from in years, from colleagues at work, from distant relatives and acquaintances. "Good for you," one said. "I always thought your family treated you terribly," said another. "Living your best life. You look so happy." "Where is this?" It's beautiful." My cousin, my father's nephew, who I had always gotten along with, sent a longer message. "Elena, I don't know the whole story, but I saw your post and I just wanted to say I'm proud of you. Your family has always overlooked you, and it's about time you did something for yourself. Enjoy Italy. You deserve it." That message made me cry, sitting on my balcony with my morning coffee. Someone in my extended family saw it. Someone understood. I spent the rest of the week living in a kind of beautiful suspension. I took a cooking class and learned to make fresh mozzarella. I went on a boat tour and swam in hidden coves. I visited Pompeii and Herculaneum, walking through ancient streets and imagining the lives lived there. I ate incredible food and drank excellent wine. I read 3 books. I slept whenever I was tired and woke without alarms. I had conversations with strangers who would never know I was the daughter who wasn't good enough for family photos. On my last evening in Italy, I sat on my balcony and watched the sunset one more time. I thought about what I would face when I returned to Louisville. The anger, the recriminations, the demands that I apologize and make things right. But I also thought about the fact that I had done something I never thought I would do. I had chosen myself. I had drawn a line and said, "This far and no further." I had disappeared from their perfect wedding, and in doing so, I had finally become visible to myself. The flight back to Louisville felt different than the flight to Italy. I wasn't running anymore. I was returning on my own terms, with a week of memories that belonged only to me. When I landed and turned on my phone, I expected the flood of angry messages. What I didn't expect was the voicemail from Gabriella that had been left just hours earlier, at 3 a.m. her time. She was crying, her words slurred slightly. "Elena, I don't understand why you hate me so much. I just wanted a perfect wedding. Was that so wrong? You've always been jealous of me. Always. Mom says you're just bitter because you're not as pretty as me, because you don't have a boyfriend, because your life is so boring. She says you did this for attention. I defended you. I said you wouldn't do something this cruel. But maybe she's right. Maybe you are just a bitter, jealous person who can't stand to see me happy." I listened to the entire message, waiting for even a moment of self-reflection, any acknowledgement of how they had treated me. It never came. I deleted it and called a car to take me home. My apartment felt foreign after a week away. The mail had piled up. The plants needed water. Everything looked the same, but I felt fundamentally different. I had barely finished unpacking when someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw my mother standing there, her face set in hard lines. I considered not answering, but I knew this conversation was inevitable. When I opened the door, she pushed past me into the apartment without being invited. "Well," she said, turning to face me with her arms crossed. "I hope you're satisfied." "Hello, Mom," I said calmly. "I'm fine. Thanks for asking." Italy was beautiful. Her face flushed red. "Don't you dare be flippant with me. Do you have any idea what you've done? Gabriella's wedding was completely disrupted. People kept asking where you were. We had to explain that you had some kind of breakdown. Do you know how that made us look?" "How it made you look," I repeated. "That's what you're worried about?" "Of course that's what I'm worried about. What else should I be worried about? You made a choice to humiliate this family. You didn't care about your sister's feelings. You didn't care about all the work we put into that wedding. You just decided to be selfish and run away." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "Mom, Gabriella told me I couldn't be in any wedding photos because I would ruin the aesthetic. She told the photographer to keep me as far from the camera as possible. You told me my main job was to give a speech and then stay in the background. How was I supposed to respond to that?" My mother waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, don't be so sensitive. She just wanted her wedding to look nice. There's nothing wrong with that. You're twisting it into something it wasn't. She didn't want me in any photos, Mom. None. Because I'm too awkward. Because I don't fit her aesthetic." "Well, you have to admit, "You're not as photogenic as Gabriella," my mother said, as though this was a simple fact rather than a devastating thing to say to your daughter. "We were just trying to help her have the wedding she dreamed of. You could have been a little more understanding." Understanding, I repeated, like I've been understanding for 27 years while you centered everything around Gabriella. While you cropped me out of family photos. While you threw her elaborate parties and gave me gift cards. While you left my college graduation early for her hair appointment. "You're exaggerating," my mother said, but her voice was less certain. "We've always treated you both equally." "We both know that's not true." She was quiet for a moment, and I thought maybe, finally, she might acknowledge what she had done. Then she straightened her shoulders and said, "You owe your sister an apology. And us. You ruined her wedding day. The least you can do is take responsibility for that." "No," I said simply. "Excuse me?" "No, I'm not apologizing. I didn't ruin anything. I chose not to participate in an event where I was explicitly told I was unwelcome in any visible capacity. That's not the same thing." "You're being ridiculous. Of course you were welcome. To do labor, to write a speech, to help with setup, but not to actually be seen. Not to exist in any of the memories you were creating. That's not being welcome, Mom. That's being used." She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing as she searched for words. Finally, she said, "You've changed. Italy made you selfish." "Italy didn't change me," I said. "It just gave me space to see clearly what I've been putting up with." She turned toward the door, then stopped. "Your father doesn't want you at the house until you apologize. Neither does Gabriella. So I guess you'll be spending holidays alone from now on." "If that's the price of respecting myself," I said, "I'll pay it." She left without another word, slamming the door behind her. The next few weeks were strange. I went back to work at Velwyn Labs, where my colleagues welcomed me back with genuine interest in my trip. I showed them photos, told them about the food, described the views. None of them knew about the family drama behind my vacation. My project manager, a woman named Angela, noticed something different about me. "You seem lighter," she said during a team meeting. "I don't know how to describe it, but you look like you've let go of something heavy." She was right. I had. Social media became a battlefield I hadn't anticipated. My Italy photos had gotten attention, and people who knew my family had started asking questions. Gabriella eventually posted wedding photos with a caption about "celebrating with the people who matter," a clear dig at me. But the photos themselves told a story. She looked beautiful, the wedding was gorgeous, but there was something forced in her smile. And the comments section was telling. "Where's your sister?" someone asked. "Didn't Elena give a speech?" asked another. Gabriella didn't respond to any of those comments. Then my cousin, the one who had sent me the supportive message, posted a comment on one of my Italy photos. "Family is the people who treat you like you matter. Glad you found your happiness, Elena." It was a small act of rebellion in our family, but it meant everything to me. 3 weeks after I returned, I got a call from Gabriella. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. "What do you want?" I asked. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice quiet. "Can we meet for coffee?" "Why?" "Please, Elena, just give me an hour." Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our apartments, neutral territory. Gabriella looked tired. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide the shadows under her eyes. She ordered a latte and sat across from me, gripping the cup like it might escape. "Tyler and I have been fighting," she said finally. "About you." "About me?" "He wants to know why you weren't at the wedding. He asked me directly why my sister didn't come. I told him you were sick, but he didn't believe me. He pushed and pushed until I told him the truth." She paused. "About the photos, about what I said." I waited. He was horrified, Gabriella continued, her voice breaking slightly. He said I was cruel. He said he didn't know I was that kind of person. We've been arguing about it constantly. He thinks I'm shallow. And? I prompted. And I wanted you to know that I didn't mean it that way. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I just wanted everything to be perfect. At my expense, I said. I didn't think you'd care that much, she admitted. You never said anything before. You always went along with what Mom wanted. I thought you were fine with it. I wasn't fine with it. I was just too afraid to stand up for myself. Until I wasn't. Gabriella looked down at her coffee. Tyler says I need to apologize to you. He says what I did was wrong. Do you think it was wrong? I asked. She was quiet for a long moment, then quietly. I don't know. I still don't understand why you made such a big deal out of it. It was just photos. Just photos. Just my existence. Just my visibility. Just my worth in my own family. Gabriella, you told the photographer to keep me as far from the camera as possible because I'm too awkward. You laughed about it with your bridesmaids. You spent years watching Mom and Dad treat me as less important than you, and you never once thought that might be wrong. So no, I don't think you understand. And I don't think you're actually sorry. I'm trying, she said, tears starting to fall. Tyler says if I don't fix this, if I don't make things right with you, he doesn't know if he can stay with me. He says it shows something fundamental about my character. He's not wrong, I said. She looked up at me, mascara smudging under her eyes. So what do I do? That's not my problem to solve, I said. I'm not responsible for fixing your marriage or teaching you empathy or making you understand why what you did hurt me. That's work you have to do yourself. I stood up, leaving my coffee unfinished. Elena, wait, Gabriella said desperately. What do you want from me? What would make this okay? I looked at my sister, this woman I had spent my whole life trying to please, trying to support, trying to love, despite her constant dismissal of me. I don't want anything from you, I said. I just want you to leave me alone. I left her sitting there, crying into her latte, and walked out into the sunshine. 6 months later, I was promoted to research director at Velwyn Labs. It came with a significant raise, a corner office, and the respect I had always deserved. I celebrated by taking myself out to dinner at the best restaurant in Louisville. I wore the emerald green dress from Italy and ordered champagne. I toasted to myself, to choosing my own worth over their approval. My relationship with my family remained fractured. My parents had held firm on their demand for an apology I would never give. Gabriella had sent a few more messages, but I rarely responded. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she and Tyler were in marriage counseling, that my absence from their wedding had become a symbol of larger issues in their relationship. I felt no guilt about that. What I felt instead was freedom. I joined a book club and made new friends who knew nothing about my family history. I started taking Italian lessons, planning a return trip to the Amalfi Coast. I went on dates with men who found me interesting and attractive, who never suggested I should make myself smaller or less visible. I reconnected with my cousin, the one who had supported me. He and I started having monthly dinners, building a relationship based on actual mutual respect. You know, he said one evening over pasta, you leaving that wedding is legendary in the family. Everyone's been talking about it for months. I'm sure I'm portrayed as the villain, I said. By some people, yeah. But others are starting to ask questions, like why did you leave? What really happened? And when they hear the truth, when they find out Gabriella told you couldn't be in photos, their opinion shifts pretty quick. Good, I said. 1 year after the wedding that never was, at least for me, I received a letter in the mail. It was from my mother, handwritten on her expensive stationery. Elena, it began, I've been thinking about what happened, and I want you to know that I'm sorry you felt hurt. That was never our intention. We were just trying to make Gabriella's day special. I hope that someday you can forgive us and we can be a family again. Love, Mom. I read it twice, looking for any real acknowledgement, any actual understanding. All I found was, "I'm sorry you felt hurt," not, "I'm sorry we hurt you." The blame was still on my sensitivity, not their cruelty. I put the letter in a drawer and didn't respond. What I did instead was book another trip to Italy. 2 weeks this time, visiting different towns, making new memories. I sent postcards to my cousin, to my friends from book club, to colleagues at work who had become real friends. I didn't send any to my parents or Gabriella. On my last night in Italy, on a different balcony in a different town overlooking the same beautiful sea, I thought about how far I had come. I thought about the woman who had sat in her living room a year ago, listening to her sister explain why she wasn't good enough for family photos. That woman had been so used to being invisible that she had almost accepted it. But she hadn't. She had bought a plane ticket instead. She had chosen herself instead. She had disappeared from their perfect wedding, and in doing so, had finally been seen. As the years went on, my parents grew older and more isolated. Gabriella's marriage ended after 3 years. Tyler, it turned out, had meant what he said about her character. He couldn't overlook how she had treated me, couldn't accept a partner who was capable of that kind of casual cruelty. The divorce was quiet, but final. Gabriella moved back in with our parents, her social media presence reduced to occasional generic posts about coffee and sunsets. The bridesmaids who had giggled about keeping me out of photos had drifted away, moving on to other friends with other weddings. No one wanted to be around someone whose selfishness had become so obvious. My father never did apologize. He died 4 years after the wedding, still convinced I had been the one in the wrong. I went to his funeral but left before the reception. My mother tried to hug me, tried to act as though those years of silence hadn't happened. I stepped back, offered my condolences, and drove home. Gabriella watched from across the room, looking older than her years, and didn't approach me. My mother sent emails occasionally, newsy updates about relatives I barely remembered, carefully avoiding any mention of the past. I read them and filed them away, feeling nothing but a distant sadness for what could have been if they had chosen to see me. But I built a different life. I became one of the leading researchers at Velwyn Labs. I traveled extensively, collecting memories in dozens of countries. I found love eventually, with someone who thought my face was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen and told me so often. We got married in a small ceremony on the Amalfi Coast, with only our closest friends present. The photos from that day hang on every wall in our home. As I look back on that day when I disappeared from Gabriella's wedding, I don't regret a single moment. Walking away wasn't running. It was the bravest thing I'd ever done. It was the moment I stopped letting them make me invisible and started letting myself be seen. And in the end, the view from that Italian balcony, sipping tea while they waited for a speech I would never give, was worth more than any family photo I was never supposed to be in anyway. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to play a role in someone else's narrative. Sometimes revenge is just living well and leaving them behind to wonder what they lost when they chose their perfect aesthetic over a sister who had always been there. Sometimes justice is simply knowing that you were strong enough to walk away and find your own light.